reassuringly chunky.
I'm really happy with them because they're British and I mentioned to a few of my podcaster friends that I'm getting these Aston Stells, and they were like, "Oh my god, it's like the Bentley of microphones." It really is. They're like these are retailing now about £300 each.
Wow.
But Aston have been really kind to us. I explained our situation with the new studio, no money, and we're trying to make. And they were like, "Okay, we'll bring the price down to sort of half price for you, and we'll let you pay from bit by bit." Like so, But that is what it is. If eventually somebody's like, "Hi, Shrewsbury Biscuit, we'll give you money," I'll be like, "Okay, thanks."
Invest.
Invest. Yeah. So, guys, welcome to the show. This is how we're going to do it now. I'm not even going to welcome people in at the beginning. We're just going to do a Joe Rogan run-in. Today, we've got special guest Steve Palmer, who's a local author, and we've just been having a really good chat about music, actually, before we even hit record. And
it's always the way, though, isn't it? We always get really good content before we hit record.
Exactly. And of course, as you heard, we've got our beautiful Shane Hinton.
Hello.
With his very Norse-looking his beard. I love that beard.
I'm trying, mate.
I think it's great.
It's getting there.
Norse beard and flat cap.
Yeah.
It's a
I don't follow any trend.
Good.
He's like the Ragnar
of Peaky Blinders.
We've gone pretty Norse here already, haven't we?
We have, we have. I just wanted to say that we were supposed to. I'm going to be honest. We were supposed to have Laura Clark on from Lefebvre Chocolates today, but she wasn't feeling very well, and I've got to send out some hugs over the air to Laura because I absolutely love that lady.
Yeah,
She's been a massive support to us from the very, very beginning. We were chatting earlier actually because she sent me a really nice voice message about things that happened today, which we'll get into in a sec. And she was like, "I remember when I was on Pride Hill." We had the same conversation earlier.
Yeah, literally.
I had a microphone. I was like, will you talk to me, please? And people just wouldn't do it. And she was like, "Oh, just hang in there, man. You can do it. Don't worry about it." And she was like, "Now look at you. Do you want to announce what? I mean, people that follow us on social media will know anyway. But what happened today, Shane?
We're on the board. We're on the board. We went to the launch of the Monopoly Shrewsbury edition today at the prison. And
currently all over Facebook.
I mean, it was good. I mean, we always knew we were going to have some sort of involvement. We've been very purse-lipped about it, and we've been dying to sort of announce it.
It's been killing me.
But we managed it. And we were like, right, okay, we got there, and there was a table set out in the wing that had the game set out already on it.
Uh-huh.
And so I'll go straight up and grabs all the cards because, as far as we were concerned, we're going to have a card, like a
chance or community chest,
some sort of on a card. So he starts going through all the cards, and he goes, "Oh, we're not on it. Oh, right, maybe they must have found somebody else, or." I was like,
"Well, fair play. At least
cool.
At least we're included."
Yeah, we've been involved pretty much right from the initial start, really, in some sort of capacity. And we're like, "Okay, cool. Oh well, doesn't matter. We're humble people." And then and I was just like, "Oh, okay, that's cool." And we're just looking at it, and all of a sudden I was like, "Ow." He's like, "What?" I was like, "We're on the board." He was like, "What?" Yeah. And I literally were on a chance, on the board, literally right there. And
Fantastic.
We were like, "Ah!" So we went through into the restaurant in the prison, and there was a massive, huge, massive board, and we were looking at this chance thing with our logo and that on it, and we just looked at each other like, do you want to just pop outside for a minute and trying to keep our composure?
Have a bit of a cry.
So So we kind of moseyed on outside of it, and as soon as we got out the way of everybody else, we were like, yes, jumping around everywhere. And then Jules come later and saw us still jumping around the Seawing Yard, and then it was just amazing, absolutely amazing.
I just want to say thank you to everybody that's shown faith in us. But anyway, look, I don't want to sit here and I've noticed when I've been editing through that we have we've been talking about ourselves a lot. Are you okay? Oh, what you like? We've been talking about a lot about ourselves. We're kind of really proud of what we do, and I don't want to sound
good. You should be, yeah.
But let's talk about you, Steve. I remember back then when I first started the show, I kind of. I was going to say I overexposed myself because I did.
Oops.
Yeah. I kind of went out there and I gave everyone my card. I organised like 8 different shows for the launch, and it was a bit much if I'm going to be honest. I was kind of like, oh my god, there's so many people going on, and
Stuff happens.
communication kind of broke down between us, and I felt really bad because like
All right.
you're a creator. And I like creators.
Good.
So I'm really glad to have you on the show. Thank you for
asking me. You're very welcome.
So let's find out a bit about you. Are you originally from Shrewsbury?
Kind of, yeah. My parents moved here when I was 6.
Yeah.
So my mum's Welsh, my dad's English. We lived in Wales for a bit. So So I was, as a young kid, 6-year-old, went to Church Primary School.
Oh, fantastic!
Then went to the Wakeman School. It was a grammar school in those days. Well, it was very different in those days. It was in the 70s.
I'm a primary boy.
Oh right, yeah. Well, it turned into it was like more of a priory thing after 1980, I think. But I'd left by
Right.
then. So then I went to university in London and did university things down there and met people and got married and stuff. So I'm kind of Shropshire. I mean, this is my home county. Shrewsbury is my hometown.
Yeah.
And then to cut a very long story short, my then wife, and I had to move back to Shropshire in 2005. So I've been in Shropshire since then, and have been loving it.
Yes.
Yeah. It's a beautiful place. I do love it, and Shrewsbury is such a fantastic town. I love Shrewsbury.
So we were talking. My knee is right next to the leg of this chair at a table. So you're a writer, and we were talking before we began the show that you said you've been writing for many years now. Was that something you wanted to do when you were younger? Is something you could see yourself doing?
It absolutely was. Yeah. When I was doing English at the Wakeman School in 1970, whatever it was, 5, 4, 6, whatever. I absolutely loved creative writing, and I was in those days we had O levels, which some of your listeners won't even remember. But when we did English O level, I was gutted to find out that creative writing wasn't even on that. So even when I was a young teenager, I was doing creative writing and loving it. And then went to university, did physics, loved science, and just got back into it in my 20s. Well, I don't know. It's just a very, very long story. I can give you a potted highlight if you like.
Yeah. I mean, we're here for a good hour. So.
Yeah. So, basically, I did what everyone did in those days, sent stuff around to publishers in London, on paper. So, I'd find out who these guys were, get their names from various, location library books and stuff like that, send stuff off to them. But I didn't realise how bad I was. Like most novice writers, I was hopeless, absolutely hopeless, and I just had no idea.
Full of confidence.
I just thought I'd try it. So one day, what happened was I received a package, which was a return of one of my, sample chapters and synopsis. I thought, they've returned this. Obviously, it's not very good. And on the second page, somebody had left a post-it note, which shouldn't have been there. And this post-it note described how useless my writing was and how terrible. Wow. But the thing was, I was absolutely mortified when I read it. I thought, oh my God, I'm useless. But then that actually turned me around. I thought, I actually still want to do this. I love doing it. I'm by nature very creative, so I really upped my game, and I read books about how to write. I kind of learned from other authors. I really, really did some serious work to get better, basically. It kind of showed me how useless I was.
Yeah,
and sometimes you have to see that.
Yeah, that shows a lot of depth in you, though, because a lot of people would have been like, right, fine, that's it then, But you went out and you really wanted to...
Yeah, I just knew I wanted to do it. I just loved it. I still absolutely... I have to say, being an author is fantastic fun. There's no money in it. It's a real slog. You have to work incredibly hard.
Yeah.
But I absolutely love it. It is a great thing to do. And then again, I got lucky again. In the early 90s, I sent stuff to Orbit Books because I was writing science fiction at the time, and didn't hear back. And then I got married to my wife, and we were living in Luton, down in the southeast. And we were living in, basically, because Luton is not exactly the most lovely town. It's I shouldn't say really. But anyway, it's, not the nicest place. And we had 2 appalling neighbours. One of them was severely mentally ill, which at the time
be helped. But...
Well, exactly. And at the time, this was Thatcher's Britain, care in the community. There was no community. These people were not being cared for. It was disaster. But at the time, we didn't really have the understanding to feel sorry for them.
Yeah.
I kind of do now in a way, because they were just absolutely let go. But they were making our life a living hell. So we had to move away. And literally a week before we moved, never going back to that place again, not leaving a forwarding address, I received a letter from a guy called Tim Holman at Orbit Books saying, yeah, I read your, this is a year after I sent this stuff out. He said, yeah, I read your sample chapters. I really like this. Can you send us the rest?
Nice.
So I had to write to him and say, yeah, I wrote to him, that's right.
Which one was it?
Well, I had to say, look, I'm in the middle of an extremely traumatic house move at the moment. And also by then I'd had a better idea for a third version of this novel that he had read the second version of. So I just thought, oh Christ, what the hell am I going to do? So I moved house, had Christmas, went down to Cornwall, where my wife was from, had a bit of a rest, came back, did a really, really good third version of this, sent it off to him, and then heard nothing. And literally, this is 1994, and then literally at the end of that year, I had a phone call. And he said, this was Tim Holman again, he said, yeah, I'm really sorry for not having been in touch for almost a year. They had been moving offices, they'd had issues with themselves, in the publishing house, and they just said, yeah, we like this. We'll make a decision and we'll let you know shortly after Christmas.
That's amazing.
And they said, yes, I could. The most phenomenal, and that is my,
What was that?
stroke of luck.
What was that first publication then? What was that?
That was Memory Seed, my debut novel. At the time, it was called something different. But I got lucky. I got picked off the slush pile, as it's known, at odds of about 10,000 to 1 against, because they were getting 2,000 submissions per year.
Oh, wow.
So it was the most amazing stroke of luck.
And what was it like for you when you've got your first? How does it work for a writer when something gets published for the first time?
Well, for ages I didn't believe it. It was just so. I had to go down to London and meet this guy in this enormous office building. He was second in command at Orbit at the time, and meet him. I was very naive. I didn't really know what I was doing. I was very young, to be fair. I was only, just in my 30s. I had no idea really what was going on, to be brutally honest. And then the other thing that happened was that the book was called Cray, Kray, because it was there was a hint that there might be a supercomputer in there, as in the Cray supercomputer. And literally 3 weeks before the deadline, he said to me, we can't really call it Cray because of the Cray twins, and that might be a bit of an issue. So we had to come up with a new title with 20 days, and I couldn't think of anything. My wife couldn't think of anything. So eventually one of my friends came up with Seeds of Memory, because he'd read it in a very early draft, my friend Steve Kett. And thank goodness he did, because we were stuck, and that was turned into Memory Seed. So yeah,
fantastic. And so what? How, when you get a book released? So this is the days before Amazon. Before
this is 1996.
Yeah. So before you could buy,
way before Amazon.
Yeah, way before Amazon. Well, what I mean is
before internet shopping.
Yeah,
I sent a synopsis of my book to. The synopsis is still in my drawer upstairs, in my underwear drawer actually.
Yeah.
Never really done anything with it. I sent it out. People. I got publishers coming back to me going, if you send us £3,000, we will do whatever you want to do, but you just got to come up with that.
That's Reality Publishing. No.
Yeah.
Don't never touch that with the bar.
Yeah, and that's because there's so much out there, like with Amazon, with the availability of things. So back then when you released this, it was, I guess, physical copies were made in like...
Yeah, they had 6,000 made.
6,000 made.
Basically, they worked out what it was likely to sell as a new debut author. British. They were looking for 2 British authors. I was one of them, and so they made a guess that 6,000 would be about right. It actually did sell out, and in fact, it was reprinted. There was a book chain called Dryland at the time, which afterwards was taken over by Waterstones, and Dryland did a special promotion, so an extra couple of thousand were printed. So it did really well. And then the sequel that I did, because I had a 2-book offer, was called Glass, and that kind of reprised the plot for reasons which my fans didn't really understand, unfortunately. So I kind of, in retrospect, I slightly regret doing that, but it at the time it was the right thing to do.
Is it the awkward sequel then?
It wasn't really a sequel. It was a kind of retread, but looking at things from a different angle. So
okay.
I think they were just it just didn't. I mean, it did sell. It sold more than Memory Seed, but I got dropped after that. So, mind you, a lot of authors did. It was a bad time for science fiction in the late 90s.
Did you make many author friends back then?
Oh yeah,
you still speak to you today.
Yeah. Met Ian Banks.
Yeah,
I was invited to their convention in Glasgow. And obviously he was Scottish, so I met him. Yeah, I met a few. But again, I was so naive. I was young. I knew nobody. I'd been fantastically lucky, so I wasn't really in with the in crowd.
Yeah.
So I just knew. So by the time I got dumped, I was just about ready to understand what had happened to me.
Yeah,
it was a really strange experience. 2 or 3 years of being known who you are, and then. Who's that?
I can imagine it being like a whirlwind tornado. Sort of.
It was. It absolutely was. Yeah.
What just happened?
What was that? A bit like a wedding day.
Yeah.
A wedding day's a bit like that.
That's a great analogy.
That's a very good analogy. My wedding day was like that. Me and Amanda sat down at the end of our day and thought,
what the hell just
it's
happened?
6:00 already. Yes.
Yeah. What?
Yeah.
Did so and so even turn up? I didn't even see him.
Yeah.
I remember my wedding day, and I was just getting dragged around because my wife is Colombian. You don't just say goodbye to people. You have to physically go around and say goodbye to people or hello to people. It's very physical, man. You got to. And so during my wedding day, I was kind of getting dragged on.
I know on my wedding day with like my now ex-wife. But yeah, that was a bit like that. But we had kids as well. So not only did I have to deal with the guests, but there was a picture of me somewhere in my wedding suit. On my hands and knees changing a nappy.
It was a total whirlwind. Yeah.
And I can remember going home. In fact, I was driving on my wedding day, because we had the kids and everything. So I was stone cold sober. I remember driving home, putting the kids to bed, and sort of sitting downstairs after just taking my suit off and just being like,
suddenly it's the evening. Yeah.
And you're like, what the hell's just happened?
Yeah.
And this is what boggles my mind is like, with weddings, this is going to sound a bit raunchy and a bit weird, but everybody expects this amazing night where it's the first night with your wife and it's
never happened. Never happened.
No comment.
You are knackered. You are going to sleep.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So after you got dropped from the label, what happened then for you? Because
I then got picked up by an American company. By then I got to know a few people, so I got picked up. But it turned out that the guy, I got to be careful what I say here.
Yeah, of course, I didn't want to offend him.
The guy who ran this company is how can I put it? He's has certain idiosyncrasies.
Oh, okay.
So that wasn't such a good deal as I thought it was.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of lived off that for a while. And then so by the time I got to about 2006, I'd had no real luck. That was actually the first of 2 times that I almost gave up. Now by this time I'd moved to Shropshire. I was working at Waterstones in the High Street in Shrewsbury. I was there for a year, and I just thought, this is just I'm going to have to give up here. But I didn't give up. What I thought I would do is I thought I would reinvent myself and just start again as if from scratch. So I started sending stuff around to publishers, and I literally chose the best of the British independent publishers. I listed them all, chose the top one, which is PS Publishing, sent something to them on a Friday, and on the Monday, to my absolute astonishment, I got an email from Nick Geevers, who was the PS's editor at the time, saying, we'll have this. That by right should never have happened. Another extraordinary stroke of luck.
That speaks of your character, though. After all those years of just like fail, and you just think, do you know what? This is my last chance. This is what I'm going to do. Otherwise, that's it. And then you.
Well, I actually thought that this will sound weird, but I kind of was, in a way, looking forward to it because it gave me a chance again to kind of reinvent myself, to kind of really pit myself against the odds again, to really make an effort and get out there and absolutely do it.
More educated as well.
Yeah, exactly.
But it was right this time.
Yeah, but it was the idea of actually, really pitting myself against the odds that really attracted me. That I just thought, I'm going to bloody well do this again and make it damn well work.
Because the man told you couldn't, sort of thing,
So then what happened was, I had, I can't go into this because it's personal and I've got to be careful. But my wife was severely ill. So then there was quite a big hiatus in my life for many years, and the book didn't come out till 2010. So then that did okay. It wasn't terribly well reviewed, and it was quite a challenging novel. I do occasionally do. I do like to. I don't like to give my readers too easy a time. It does vary from book to book, but some books of mine are going to be very challenging, and some of my fans like those ones. They prefer those because they want to.
In
be
what way?
challenged.
Like hard stories, or just
no? I just there's a lot of stuff going on beneath the surface that my fans kind of like. They have to get. It's not all they're done. All the work isn't done for them. All the books that I really love today are the novels that I have really had to put a lot of effort into. I had to reread, think about.
Kind of cryptic, sort of.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that, to me, is the kind of novel that I like to write. Not always, but, quite often.
Yeah.
So this novel, Urbis Morpheos, was probably my most challenging work. And I look back on it now with fairly mixed feelings. Again,
what goes into making something like that? When you've got to write something cryptic like that, something that people's got to work. Is there a lot of research that goes involved, or does that just flow out of you?
Well, that one kind of did and didn't. Again, this is a really strange thing that happens with my novels sometimes. With that one, the novel was set 1 million years in the future, so I had to.
Wow.
Devise a kind of a world and characters that would be recognisable to a reader, in 2006, but would be so futuristic that it would absolutely blow their minds. So that's quite a difficult tightrope to walk. So most of the reviews of that novel kind of get that and think, okay, this is completely different. This is something a bit different, but that does make it quite a challenging read at the same time.
That's one of those things that you do think about. Though, what's the world going to be like in 1 million years?
This is why I write. Actually, this is. I remember when I was at primary school, so I would have been 10 or 11. I was in Miss Reed's primary class at Bashchurch Primary School.
Shout out to Miss Reed.
Yeah, well, she has passed away now, obviously. So this would be, 1971? So a long time ago. Anyway,
yeah.
We were all asked this question. If you had the choice, would you go back in the past, would you stay in the present, or would you go in the future? Now, there were 30 people in this class, and I vividly remember this. The vast majority of the kids wanted to go back into the past. Quite a lot wanted to stay in the present, and 4 kids, me included, wanted to go into the future. And at the time, I remember thinking, that's really weird, because it was obvious to me that the future
want to go into the future?
Yeah, but most people wanted to stay where they were or go back in the past. And to this day, I think that's quite a strange thing for me to recall, yeah.
Yeah. What was I going to say? If you could spend a week in any past decade, as on a holiday, go back and spend a week in a decade or a time, where would you go?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
I would go back to kind of late Victorian times.
Yeah?
A lot of my recent novels, the trilogy that I'm having relaunched in December, the 4th novel, which wasn't originally published when the trilogy originally came out, my novel Tommy Catkins, which is a World War I novel, and one other novel that was a kind of a surreal. Are you familiar with Spike Milligan and the Goons? And Monty
loosely.
Python? Yeah. So I wrote this extremely silly novel. I wanted to write a novel with a really serious theme that was just really silly, so it would kind of mash up those.
A bit like a Blackadder type thing,
It's one reviewer said it was Blackadder merged with Alice in Wonderland, which I was very very flattered by.
Okay.
But that whole Victorian era, I'm just fascinated by that now, because so much stuff was happening to Britain that we still have consequences today. Our notion that we had an empire, that we are a faded empire. Our kind of devotion to royalty. I'm no royalist myself, but in those days it was even more very much more different than what it was now.
Politically,
there's that as well. Yeah, it's just fascinating. So. So I think probably maybe 1880, that sort of time.
What about you, Shane?
Yeah,
I think it'd be the 50s.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, like the 50s, sort of 50s, 60s, something like that. Because,
Elvis.
Yeah, well, not even just Elvis. It's just very much like around 50s onwards. To be fair, because it's very much like you did things for your family off your own back. If you wanted to start a business, you just did it. And just things like that. You could do things straight away off the bat on your own.
The 50s feels like a more innocent time now, doesn't it?
Yeah,
it's quite
sort
hard
of.
to think back because the world now is so difficult and challenging.
I watched Mad Men. Mad Men is one of my favorite series, and there's like this amazing scene where the whole family go for a picnic, and they literally just like they to finish with their picnic, they all stand up and they just chuck all their stuff all over the grass, like, and then just walk off. And like the garbage, the litter, you know. Yeah. I think I would. Okay, this is going to sound quite morbid, but I'm genuinely quite interested because there are two sides to the story. I would like to go and see the Battle of Waterloo if I could be safe. Like, I would love to know what actually happened because, you know, there's people who are like, oh, France kind of won, and then there's someone's like, well, the Prussians kind of saved the British, and then there's like the British like, well, we were brave. I mean, you know, I would love to know what actually happened because
you want to cut through the controversy.
Yeah, well, I'm a big Sharp fan. I love Sharp.
Oh, right, yeah.
And so that book for me, Cornwell's got this amazing way of describing battles.
He's a brilliant author. Yeah. When I worked for Waterstones, we sold shed loads of his books. Absolutely shed loads.
I've never read any of his Viking Saxony type stuff. I've never read any of that, which I probably should because the way he describes a battle, like there's one scene where it's probably too graphic for me to say on the show, to be honest, but it's talking about, it describes the aftermath of a battle and what it looks like, and you know, in them days you can imagine it's quite graphic. But I would just love to know what actually happened at Waterloo because not to go and look at the violence, look at the heroics more than anything, you know. Because
when I was researching for Tommy Catkins, which is about shell shock, I knew a bit about shell shock. It's called PTSD now, but just absolutely shocking. You know how bad it was. They knew nothing about shell shock in those days, absolutely nothing, and it was just, my eyes were open to how bad it was in 1914 and 1915.
Well, there's a lot of people that came back from the Falklands, you know, that was just absolutely, because even though it was such a short campaign, it was brutal.
I mean, PTSD is a massive and real thing. Yeah,
I had a friend, I'm not going to mention any names, who went to Iraq, and absolutely, he was one of the hardest guys I ever met. And when we were in the cadets together, he had decommissioned Lee Enfield rifles on his wall, stacked on his wall from when we were kids. Like, you know, he was going in the army. That was what he was doing. He went, and it ruined him. Absolutely ruined him. He would lock himself in his apartment and not come out after he came back. I mean, he's in the UN, and the Blue Caps. He's doing amazing things now. He's back out there doing these things, but he had to take a while.
Yeah, it's a long thing, and in fact, a lot of guys who get this don't.
No, they don't pull out of it, do they?
No, never.
Yeah. So shout out to anybody that's suffering for that. So you've since 2006, since that happened. What have you been? Because I mean, you're local to Shrewsbury. You stayed here. You know, largely, I guess.
So, I've lived in Shropshire since then. Yeah.
Did that kind of give you a bit of notoriety around the town, or do you kind of keep yourself to yourself? You know.
I do pretty much. I'm like many authors actually. I'm a pretty private person.
Yeah.
You know, also to be honest with you. For a long time, you know, I had personal stuff to deal with until about 2012. So it was a long time.
And I think people forget about that with authors, don't they? 'Cause, I mean, I think the big ones out there like J.K. Rowling, they'll throw the odd tweet and stuff like that and cause controversy, but they don't realise that maybe she was having a bad day.
She's had all sorts of. I mean, you know, she's a single mother.
Yeah,
she was, you know, penniless and virtually starving in Edinburgh.
Yeah, she was firing those books all across the world, wasn't she? And she's got
she's done. I mean, she's a great example of somebody who just absolutely knew they wanted to be an author and
believed in their idea too.
Absolutely,
you know, they didn't go.
If you look at the stuff she said after she became mega famous, you still have that sense that she is an author and she loves it and she wants to do it and be it. And that's a significant. People who can keep going for that long, you know, can ride because I mean, it's just you are so dependent on luck with this in this business. She got lucky, but if you can ride all the bad stuff and have that persistence, because you have to have phenomenal powers of persistence.
I need some tips and pointers. I mean, I've been lucky enough to have Shane and Julie and my wife to kind of keep me, because like I don't want to go into this whole biscuit thing again, but to get to where we are kind of going now, it's taken a lot of no's and a lot of failures and a lot of
working with Al in general is a little bit like a bowling alley with the barriers up, and you have to kind of keep bashing him back in and keep him in line, because he either goes up one way or he goes down the other.
Listen,
and you have to kind of
you only learn by your mistakes. You've got to make mistakes to get it right. That's the only way, and in fact, it's the best way to learn, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely agree.
I think I can remember the one just popped into my head. Al messaged me, and I just messaged him saying, "Yeah, how you doing?" or whatever. It was on a Sunday. And he goes, I am losing my mind. He was just like, I'm stressed, I'm annoyed, with more colourful language. And he was like, I've got this to do, I've got that to do, I've got all this stuff, and I've got to do this, and I've got to have some sleep because I'm working tomorrow. And I said, mate, put your laptop away. And he was just like...
Very good advice, yeah.
And he was just like, no, I've got to go. I said, mate, put it away. Yeah. Pick it up again on Monday. Yeah. It's not going anywhere.
And I think you guys need to remind me that you are part of the team too, and I can offload to you. Yeah.
And he was just like, I don't know. I said, put your laptop away. It's a Sunday. Spend some time with your family and your kid. Just
laptops
chill.
And the internet
put it
can
away.
Suck you in. That's it. It's a dangerous place to go. Yeah.
And it's quite funny because I work with Kaz, Alex's wife, and she's saying, she goes, thank God that you told him to do that, because he was doing my head in, absolutely doing my head in. And he did, to be fair, he did listen. He put his laptop away, and I remember you saying on the Monday or a couple of days later, saying, I'm so glad that I did that, because I needed that.
I need to have with the show, I need to have like a 3-on-1 week off sort of basis. And would you think that's really important to be creative? As a creative person yourself, do you think it's really important to take those holidays away from what you're doing?
It's essential. Yeah. It's absolutely essential. Because for an author like me, I find that a lot of the work in preparation of novels is basically being done in my subconscious, and I'm not even aware of it. Let me tell you about something that happened in 2013. I was kind of wondering what next to write, basically.
Yeah.
So I had about a year before, this idea for a book title had popped into my head: "The Girl with Two Souls." Now, why that happened, I don't know. It just randomly popped into my head. So I wrote it down. I thought, that's a great title for a book. I love that. And then one evening, I was watching Channel 4 News, just in the evening, just chilling, and these ideas just started to filter down into my head. And after about 2 or 3 minutes, there were lots of them. I thought, okay, I think I better write these down now. So I got a notebook, brand new notebook, grabbed a pen, wrote them all down, and then wrote and wrote and wrote. And I looked up, and 2 hours had passed. I had the mute button on the TV, and in that 2 hours, I had sketched out the entire template and structure of this trilogy: The Girl with Two Souls, The Girl with One Friend, and The Girl with No Soul. And that hardly changed in the writing of it over the next 2 years. Ooh, hit the spring.
It's okay. It's fine.
Yeah, it happens. So what that kind of means is my subconscious was doing the work for me. It was preparing all this stuff. It was just bubbling under. And then one evening, for no apparent reason, it just all came out, and I wrote it down straight away.
Yeah.
That's the creativity. That's the beauty of it. It's just, it's all there, waiting for you.
I absolutely resonate with you. That is me. That is exactly me.
You've got to listen to your subconscious.
The design for the studio. No, it wasn't. It was we want to go to festivals. We want to take like a marquee and a big table and a portable microphone and just do festivals. Just sit there, do this at our festival or something. Yeah. And I was like, I've got an idea for a setup. So I went and took pictures and I put things together and I designed and I put things together. It took me about an hour. I did it on my phone, all these pictures, and I sent them to Shane and to Julie. And I was meant to be sleeping for work. I just have these ideas. I have to put them down on paper. It's nothing compared to what you do.
No, you should do. You've anything that comes by itself like that automatically. Get them written down. Yeah. Whenever I go, apart from when I go to shopping or stuff, I have a notebook. I've always got a notebook and a pen in my bag or somewhere in a car. Do
you find yourself looking through old notebooks and things and finding old ideas and thinking, why haven't I done that yet?
I do. I have got an entire metal cabinet at home in my study, which is just full of ideas. Sheets in Polly Pockets, notebooks. Yeah. And there's no way I'm going to be able to write all this stuff.
There's so many examples of that in the world, wasn't there? I mean, I was watching a documentary a while ago about the NWA, the rappers, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And they did a very famous song called F the Police. And
They
it was
did
one of the
indeed,
biggest songs. I love
It
that
was
song.
very controversial, yeah.
Ice Cube wrote that song down, laughed, screwed it all up and threw it in a bin. He's like, I can't sing that. That's really bad. And somebody found it in the bin and they were like, why are we not recording this right now? And he's like, look, read the lyrics, man. He's like, we need to release this now.
There's loads of examples of that. I mean, the most famous one is Yesterday, Paul McCartney.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, but there's so many. Neil Young, who we were talking about a bit earlier. I'm a big fan of Neil Young. His idea is he goes with what comes to him first thing in the morning. So he wakes up and he kind of thinks that his dreaming mind is quite close to his conscious mind when he wakes up, as you know, 'cause you can just about remember your dreams. So he kind of writes down what he's got in his head then, because he feels that's his subconscious dreaming mind speaking to him.
Oh,
and he's got to get it down. Yeah, so I kind of use that technique myself. You know, if anything comes to me that's, you know, from a dream or first thing in the morning, get it down.
That's like there's a plot for I don't know if you've watched Black Mirror before on Netflix. There's on the latest series, there's one with Miley Cyrus, and I was like, oh, Miley Cyrus, why? But it's actually brilliant because this girl, she would go to sleep and whatever dreams she has, she'll sit down and write a song, and she's like the biggest star in the world, right? And so her parents were like milking her for everything, and because she didn't want to do it anymore, they put her in a medically induced coma, and they had a machine transcribing everything that she was dreaming, and they were just making songs out of this. And it was quite a nasty story, but that's what Black Mirror does. It takes you down
the dark side. Yeah. I think people don't realise, you know, that people don't realise, first of all, that a lot of stuff is happening in their minds without them being aware of it. Yeah. But also what an amazing resource that is. Are you fans of Julian Cope, of Teardrop Explodes?
I can't say that I know.
Now, he had this brilliant scheme where he was living in London at the time, and what he would do is he would go out cycling, and he found that the sort of physical exertion of cycling would make his mind work in a particular way.
Oh, that's interesting.
And he would then, when a tune, because he was a brilliant tunesmith, Julian Cope, he's still doing that sort of stuff. And what he would do is, when a brilliant tune came to mind, he would stop at the nearest phone box, he would ring himself, wait till his answering machine came on, and then sing the tune to his answering machine. So all these melodies that he got when he was cycling, he wouldn't forget them. Yeah, what a brilliant idea.
That's pretty cool.
That's a really good idea. I do things like that really. Because I've got the tablet on my phone, and what I do is I'll like I do the voice messages. I'll press it and go, what you need to do is you need to do this with Alex, and then I'll come back to my tablet to do some work because I'm always at this tablet working, and I'll hear those back. That's really cool.
Yeah.
I mean, on the kind of flip side of it, I mean, well, not really flip side. I mean, because I'm a mechanic by trade, but I've always like my sort of forte is like physical stuff. I've always been like a physical learner. I've always had to have things in my hands and do things with my hands, you know, and build things and stuff like that. And I can remember loads of times, you know, funny enough, we were talking about earlier in my old house, I had my ex-wife. I built all sorts of stuff. You know, I built a whole extension using majority pallets, things like that, and it was good, wasn't it? You know, and I've always sort of sat there and I've thought about ideas of what to build and what to make, you know, physically make. And the amount of times my ex-wife used to moan at me because, like, you know, I'll be sitting there and suddenly I'll just get up and out the back door. And I'll be in my shed cutting wood up and putting things together.
Stuff,
or I get a notebook, I start sort of just roughly sketching stuff and, you know, be like, oh, that could work. And obviously with the mechanic side of it as well, I mean, I used to just get stuff, cars, and fix them up and all sorts of stuff. And sometimes I get a problem I can't quite fix just yet. And I'll go away and I'll be sat watching the soaps or something. And all of a sudden I'll just sort of think, oh, hold on a minute. Have I tried that yet?
That's your subconscious working.
Yeah,
you've got to give it space to work, you see.
But then straight away,
brilliant.
I'm up and I'm out the door and I've got to go and get it sorted, you know, and I'm going to do it. Yeah. And so funny enough, with the studio, you said to me earlier, didn't you? Yeah. we got some ideas of some furniture and stuff. And
I want a very elaborate table for our studio.
So I sat there and I was like, I could make that. And we were talking about it, weren't we, earlier? Yeah. And he was like, really? I was like, yeah, I could probably make that. And since then, my head's been whirring. So you've set me off now.
Yeah. I want a big round table, a big blue round table with our Shrewsbury Biscuit logo that we can all sit around and talk about.
Yeah.
But with no money as well. So we're gonna, if anybody's got any spare pallets,
chuck them my way.
We're going to start doing something. So what are you up to these days then? Are you still writing
Yeah, I do at least one book a year. When I wrote The Girl with Two Souls, I kind of I had this. I was single at the time. I had this basically free Christmas, completely free Christmas, apart from Christmas Day when I went to see my parents and my sister. And I'd really been looking forward to writing this novel. So I wrote it really. I kind of lived it for 16 days, the 2 weeks of the holiday. I was working at the Sixth Form College at the time, and I went back to work, in January, thinking that was fantastic fun. I just absolutely loved it. So since then, what I've done is me and my ex-wife never had children,
Right.
so I've got slightly more free time than most people. Most people do have children. So I've kind of learned to use that spare time, more wisely. So when I write, it's usually over the winter holiday and the Easter holiday. I write very, very intensively. I absolutely live it for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, do at least one novel a year, sometimes two. It just depends. Go with the flow.
I'm just reading the blurb actually from The Girl with Two Souls. It sounds really interesting. I want to read it now.
Good.
I'll definitely want to pick up a couple. I want to read a couple of your books and get you back on. Maybe we can do like a Stephen Palmer book club. Because I always feel bad because the authors that I've had Ron Morgan on and Lisa Blower, and when they come on, I like to read some of their stuff and talk. And then we can talk about what goes into this.
Yeah. Read Tommy Catkins. That's probably the best one to go with first. The First World War novel.
Oh, I like stuff like that. So maybe yeah. What would you say is your biggest success as far as all the books that you've released? And
Depends what you mean. I mean, in terms of commercial success, my first two, that was with a big publisher. To be honest with you, commercial success isn't that important to me. I'm kind of, I'm doing this because I love doing it. I feel as though, well, I am an author, so and it's, I kind of, I get a kick out of knowing that my fans are going to be going to like this, or going to be stumped by that, or going to enjoy this, or so I don't write for my fans, but I write for my readers. I think authors who write for their fans, that's kind of a slightly dangerous game because you have to be true to yourself. Kate Bush is a brilliant example of this. Kate Bush basically does whatever she wants to do, and she expects her fans to go along with her. And if her fans don't go along with her, that's fine. But they usually do, of course, because she's an absolute genius. But I kind of like that Kate Bush way of kind of, being true to yourself, doing what you want to do, making it I make my novels, I put absolutely everything into my novels.
You get there's so many examples of people that have tried to do that but had to reel back. For example, Seth MacFarlane, when he killed off Brian from Family Guy. Oh, the outrage. People were not happy.
That was a great series. I'm a massive fan of The Simpsons too.
Yeah.
That's an interesting example actually of something that's been commercially successful and artistically successful, The Simpsons. That's quite a rare thing.
It's very good at being brilliantly tongue-in-cheek. It's one of those things that you can just be like,
it lands perfectly, doesn't it?
Yeah. There are various people who just, through a combination of talent and luck, because there's a huge amount of luck in this. I mean, Bowie's another classic example of somebody who was, an artist absolutely to the core, but was massively commercially successful as well. So
you talk a lot about music. You're obviously a huge fan of music.
Yeah.
Do you find a lot of you can be listening to a certain song and be like, that'll inspire you to go away and create something, or do you just do that to zone out?
No, well, I play music as well, so I record music as well. So that kind of is a separate thing.
You do, and you very kindly offered to make us some music.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've got music sort of, there's quite a lot of it online. So
do you know Wonderwall? I'm not joking.
They played that on Radio 2 today when I was at work. That's a fantastic song. That is a really brilliant song. Yeah,
I love that song. But it's one of those cliche things. And when there's a guy with a guitar, and they'll be like, "Do you know?
Can you play Wonderwall?"
It's a great song. Yeah. Don't know the chords, but.
And what do you like to do to zone out? Like, because those moments when you've got a bit of writer's block or you're just a bit fatigued or whatever, what do you like to do to bring yourself back?
Well, I never get writer's block.
No, that's good.
Because I do these novels so intensively that the whole thing is kind of in my mind for that 2 or 3 weeks, and it's just all there. Well, I listen to a lot of music. Go out with my friends, my other half, and we'll do a lot of walking.
Yeah.
Normal stuff really. Watch telly.
I always ask it, especially writers and artists, and I always ask the same question. But like, what advice would you give to budding young writers to do?
Well, I would first of all say I get asked this an awful lot, as you can imagine.
I imagine.
First of all, what I try and do. Actually, I must mention something at the moment. I'm doing a thing at the Shrewsbury Library with a guy called Joe Schumann. Now, I met Joe about 6-9 months ago. I just randomly walked up to him in Shrewsbury Library and said, do you do author events? And he's turned out to be a really great bloke. And we've basically led a writing group in Shrewsbury Library. I kind of started off leading that, giving advice to, the local budding writers of Shrewsbury and Shropshire. It's kind of evolved since then. And I have to say, if any writers out there listening to this, if you want to come to Shrewsbury Library on every alternate Tuesday, just find us out. But I kind of started off with, I kind of went for the brutal truth and then kind of reined back a bit. Because the fact is, writers have got virtually no chance of having any major success. I've had no major success. I've had nice critical success, creative success, and a bit of commercial success. The chances are virtually zero. So I always go in saying, okay, you've got no chance of success. You're not going to get anywhere. You will, if you're new to writing, you won't be very good. You've got a lot to learn. And then I kind of rein back from there and kind of then start to make it a bit more, if you've got persistence. And then I ask them this question. I say to them, what have you got inside you that has to come out via the medium of writing? And I let them think about that for a while. And that's the question that you have to ask yourself if you're an artist. What is there inside me that must come out through music, through art, through writing, whatever? And if you can answer that question as a writer and say, well, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm doing, this is why I'm doing it, you have a chance of being a writer. And then you have to learn, learn
passion,
the skills.
I suppose, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's like a sort of controlled passion. You have to have the passion, but you have to control it and kind of direct it.
Yeah.
You have to make your own luck, which is
you have to motivate yourself.
You've got to market yourself. Marketing, I'll tell you, marketing novels is far more difficult than writing novels. Writing novels is easy. Marketing them is incredibly difficult.
I imagine like taking a story, say for example, Lord of the Rings, taking a story taking that story and trying to sell it in a sentence is probably one of the biggest sciences in the world. They always say don't judge a book by its cover, but you kind of have to sometimes. You know,
sometimes.
Yeah. And you get the blurb at the back, but it must be really hard to condense that into something that's catchy. And
it's actually a very good exercise. It's one of the exercises that I gave the people at the library a few months ago. I said, I think it was a short story or something. I asked them to summarize it in one sentence. And actually, if you are querying agents, that's something that agents will ask you sometimes. They will try and get you to summarize your own novel to see if you can do it, because it is a very difficult thing. And if you can do it as an author, then the agent will know, okay, this person's got the skill. That's somebody worth paying attention to. Yeah. So you have to learn these skills.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so are there any authors that are still creating now that you really look up to, things that you look forward to reading?
I'm unusual in I actually read very little fiction. Most of the stuff I read is non-fiction. And I read very little science fiction and fantasy these days because there's just such a huge field. There are so many people doing it, and I've kind of done that. So I read, and what's kind of happened is over the last 10, 15 years, the non-fiction books that I've read have really informed what I write. And that's turned into a really nice thing to have, really. I read all sorts of, you were looking at the picture of the bone flute.
Yes.
The history of human evolution is really interesting. So that's inspired a lot of my stuff. So,
I just want to apologise. I know I'm looking at my tablet. I'm trying to get our biscuit page up on my tablet, and it won't come up because I wanted to see if there's anything we need to shout out. But technology being technology. Let's tell people a bit more about what's going on at the library for you, because I'd love. Where can people find out about that?
Okay, so it's called the Shrewsbury Writers Lab.
Yes.
So they can either go into Shrewsbury Library, which is on Castle Foregate, and ask there, or they can just Google it online.
Yeah.
Or actually no, use Ecosia. Ecosia is planting trees. Don't use Google. And then basically, this is at the moment is ongoing. We're going to have a break over Christmas, so there's 2 more sessions. One is next Tuesday, which I think is the 19th of November, and there's a last session of the year on the 3rd of December. But I have to say, it's been fantastic fun. I've had great fun.
Has it given you faith in young writers?
It has. It's been lovely to meet people. I've made new friends. Joe Schumann's great bloke. Tracy Morgan, who's a writer, another local writer who's written about John Candy, the film star.
Yeah, of course.
And there are many writers came out of the woodwork and have come to this session. It's been brilliant.
Have you found anybody that you're like, this person's going places?
Without mentioning names.
Without mentioning names, of course,
to be honest with you, most of the people who came have, in their own way, some, there was one lady, I forget her name now, who basically wanted to write a poem about a relative who was in World War One, who had been killed, I think, at the Somme or Verdun or somewhere. And so she wanted to kind of, a bit of validation, a bit of help, a bit of support on writing this poem. So I gave her the help she wanted. And, in the end, she actually gave me the full poem. And it was a lovely poem. And that poem, I believe, is now in the church that she, possibly the churchyard, I can't remember, of her local church. The poem she wrote about this soldier, yeah. So, there's been all sorts.
Yeah.
It's been great fun. We'll carry on doing it next year, I'm sure.
That's brilliant.
I asked this to John Wagner, and I think I guess it's quite. Is there ever a point where you don't, when you make something, it gets published, it's there on a shelf, you can see it, where it doesn't become special anymore, or is it still kind of every time you see something that you've created being sold, or that it's like, oh, that's mine, I made that. Sentimentality. That's what I'm trying to ask.
Yeah, kind of. Most of my sales, like most authors these days, are ebooks.
Yeah.
So at the moment, most of my books aren't on. Well, in fact, none of my books are on shelves. But to answer the question, yes, it's still. I'll tell you what has changed actually. As I said, I'm a very private person really, and not many people at my day job know that I'm an author. So I have told a few people. People I can trust, basically. And it's kind of still a profoundly strange experience when somebody who you know very well, possibly, or you work with, comes up to you and said, yeah, I read that book. And whatever they think of it, I don't mind. If they liked it or hated it, I don't mind. But just the fact that, they've read one of your books and you know them personally, that is it's really weird. Strange experience. I still haven't got over that, and I never will. Because it's just weird to think that your kind of your children are out there in print, and people that you know are reading them. That's weird.
But I guess like meeting an author of something that was written, because I feel like literature is intimate, right? That's come from your head.
Very, very intimate. Yeah.
So for me to meet Lee Child, being a Jack Reacher fan, or it would just be like, I've been inside your soul a tiny little bit.
I think this is why a lot of authors get very down and just give up, because when you write a novel and put something out there, you're putting yourself out there in many ways. And so authors or writers who are rejected, who are told their work is rubbish or that doesn't sell as they expect, or just doesn't sell at all, that feels to them like a personal rejection. And you absolutely have to get over that if you're going to sort of progress from being a writer to being an author, because you are going to be rejected time and time and time again. And it's not you that's in one novel. It's not you that's out there. It's part of yourself.
Yeah.
It's not a kind of. I think a lot of new authors feel that they personally have been rejected, but it's not like that. It's just one thing.
I mean, it probably doesn't strengthen everybody, but like going from what you told us earlier, like that kind of strengthened you, almost to the point where you were ready to give up. But look what happened; you persevered.
It's like Nietzsche said, Friedrich, the famous philosopher, "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger."
Exactly. What a great way to. So I've just been on your website now. I've just clicked. My tablet's just died. It's just like not working.
Just come alive again.
Yeah, it's not. I think the internet's. I don't know what's going on with it. But where can people find you?
Okay, so basically just search me online, Stephen Palmer with a PH. All my novels are out there on Amazon. You can find me on Goodreads. I've got my blog is just easy to find.
Yeah.
So just Google me, find out, and
Fantastic. Yeah. We always ask this to all our guests. Do you want to ask?
What does Shrewsbury mean to you?
It means a hell of a lot, actually. It's I at the moment, in about 4 weeks' time, I'm going to write volume 3 of a novel, a fantasy novel, actually, that's set in Shrewsbury.
Oh,
Now, I've made it a really dark, bleak, black Shrewsbury, and I've called it Blackberry. So it's kind of like an alternate Victorian grim Shrewsbury. So it means a hell of a lot to me. Shrewsbury is a beautiful, beautiful town. You know, the history, the buildings, the quarry, the river, the walks. I used it all in this setting. So it means a hell of a lot to me. You know, it is my hometown, even though I haven't. You know, I lived away for a lot in the southwest and the southeast.
I always say to creators that to live in a town like this, when you write or you draw or you make something, it's quite easy to be inspired
Absolutely.
by this place. You know, the architecture alone. I mean,
just walking the streets. There are only 2 towns that I know that are like Shrewsbury. One is York.
Yeah.
And one is Durham, that have the same sort of vibe of sheer
I'd love to go to York. I've never been to York, but I've watched Vikings and
You've got to go to Jorvik. The Viking archaeology. That's fantastic. Yeah. But Durham's beautiful as well. Yeah.
You were saying that as well. Though we were walking back from town. We walked that little hill that juts in by the hive.
It goes down the back of the Lion Hotel, doesn't it?
Yeah, we were walking down there, and he's just stamping on the cobbles. He's like, "This has been here forever.
Yeah,
I love this. It makes me feel so. You know.
If Brits could speak.
I could. Do you remember when they did that series of Britain's finest Victorian town and Britain's finest
I didn't see that, but I like stuff like that.
Well, one of them was Britain's finest Tudor town, and I kind of assumed that it was going to be Shrewsbury because Shrewsbury is Britain's finest Tudor town, and they chose Norwich. I couldn't believe it.
What the hell's in Norwich?
Allegedly a better Tudor town than Shrewsbury, but Shrewsbury will always be the best.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the show. It's been really
Thank you.
We've done just under an hour, and it's been absolutely fantastic
Thank you so much.
talking to you.
A great pleasure. Thank you.
A bit of housework before we get out of here. You may have heard that we've just landed. We haven't just landed. We've been very kindly given a unit to use at the parade.
Yes.
In town that we can it's like a bit of a studio space that we can use. We're just temporary. We're just going to, while it's empty, sit there, make some content. All it means is that we are in town. We got a space there that we can use to our heart's content.
Yeah.
And we can pump out some amazing content that the locals can listen to. We're going to be there from the 22nd of November. We're going to be doing a day at the parade. We've got a few
Nice one.
We've got a few surprises lined up there. We're going to be speaking to a couple of the traders, and we're trying to put something together with a certain tour guide about a certain building. I don't want to jinx us because that always tends to happen with me. I'll be like, "Oh, we're doing this, this, and this," and they'll be like, "No, you're not. Fate decided that you're not doing it today." I just want to say thank you to the guys at the parade and to everyone that's given us so much support lately. Because
Are you going to cry again?
Maybe. It's been emotion. My head is hurting. Is that much noise going on in my head because of all the amazing things that we've heard today.
Has just been a roller coaster.
It really has, man.
Excellent. Good. Yeah, good.
Right, guys, thank you very much for listening to this episode. If you got any comments to throw at us, you can find us on Facebook, of course, and you can email us, and our email is shrewsburybiscuitpodcast@gmail.com. And I'm going to sign off by saying thank you to our sponsors at Web Orchard, which we've got over
Orchard.
Orchard. They're making us a nice, sexy-looking website, which will be launched very soon, and you'll hear.
And it is beautiful. It is a beautiful website.
Nice, yeah. And you'll hear no end about that when we. And we've actually got a sketch to record. I don't know if we're doing that today or maybe tomorrow. I don't know.
You.
But we've got a funny little sketch that I wrote. That's all I like. So thank you very much again.
Cheers, guys. Thanks a lot.
Catch you guys next week. Peace out.
Peace out.